Okay, so here we are again with the article Video Game Violence, which is going to further our study with compare and contrast text structure. So you've already heard the article, you've heard it read, and you've hopefully read through it on your own. And so this is kind of our read where we're going to annotate. I'm going to show you how I annotate, what I look for, and kind of how I organize my thinking as I look through an article like this. So the first thing I notice is this picture, this weird picture with this kid on a video game. And so I immediately know, okay, well, I sort of know the subject, right? They're beating me over the head with it here. It's about video games, violent video games. And it tells me playing violent video games may have harmful effects on the brain. So I know that we're definitely talking about brain chemistry and how it can be altered by violent video games. So this first section is mostly sort of eye-catching testimonial from kiddos who are accustomed to playing violent video games. We hear from Mateo, the age of 15, 12-year-old Dylan, and Akemi, now 22, who has been playing video games for 14 years. They all say that violent video games are no big deal. It has caused no problems whatsoever. But as we reach the end of the introduction here, we see this scientist from the University of Michigan in Ann Arbor saying that regardless of what kids say, violent video games are harmful. Okay, so where's he getting that information? That's what I want to know. So let's go down. Looks like the first subheading here is TV watching. And it tells us that TV has been around a lot longer than video games, so researchers have more data on the long-term effects of violent TV shows than they do on the effects of violent video games. Okay, that's good to know. We're going to look at TV first, it looks like. So I see here that they're referring to a study that was conducted starting in 1977. In which they looked at hundreds of first and third graders and took a look at them again 15 years later. And they kind of wanted to know, well, what kind of adults have these children become? And we see this very striking evidence. By the time they were in their early 20s, women who had watched violent shows as kids were 4 times as likely to have punched, choked, or beaten other people as were women who didn't watch such programs as kids. Boys who watched violent TV grew up to be 3 times as likely to commit crimes as boys who didn't watch such programs. I'm going to take a look at, or I'm going to go ahead and highlight this in red. I've already sort of decided that I'm going to structure my thinking here as a compare and contrast between characteristics of people who watch violent TV and video games versus those who don't. People who watch violent video games, I'm going to highlight as red, and those who don't, I will highlight as yellow. So I already have a text connection here, and my text connection is that I did not watch violent television or play violent video games as a kid, although I did play a lot of Super Mario Brothers. And so my text connection here, I'm going to go ahead and just italicize it, and I'm going to say, I didn't watch violent TV or play violent video games, and I have never done any of those things. Except, of course, in the context of Taekwondo, and as many of you know, I have a black belt in Taekwondo, and so that's allowed, right? Work with me here. Okay, so let's make our way down through the article. We see that violent playing is even more powerful than violent watching. It tells us that when a child or player identifies with a character and responds to the rewards for rough behavior, that effective learning is engaged. And so I'm a teacher, but I'm not entirely sure what effective learning is. So I'm going to go ahead and, if I can find it, golly, I'm going to go ahead and underline that because I'm going to come back and look at that later. Okay, so we have an example, the game Carmageddon. Extra points for plowing over elderly or pregnant pedestrians in creative ways. That's appalling that people do that in games. So let's see. More examples. So some quotes from yet another player of games, Jason 16, Jake 15. Okay, so here's a little more evidence. The University of Michigan study of TV watching found that people who were more aggressive as kids didn't necessarily watch more violent shows as adults. This finding suggests that watching violence leads to acting violently, not the other way around. Okay, interesting. So our next subheading is inflicting punishment. So here we have a study where some were assigned to play Killzone or Doom 3 or Mario Kart versus Tony Hawk for about 20 minutes, and then participants compete with another child in a different room on a task. The winner of the task then decides whether they want to administer a blast of noise through a pair of headphones. It tells us that the players were told that blasting their partners at a level 8 or above would cause permanent hearing damage. Don't worry, the participants were actually imaginary. Results showed that kids who played violent games first, then went to the task, delivered louder noises to their competitors than did kids who played non-violent games. Kids who played violent games and felt strongly connected to their on-screen characters sometimes delivered enough noise to make their invisible partners go deaf. Yikes, right? Okay, once again, so we're going to go with red here, because that is an example of characteristics of a child or of an individual who has played violent video games. Okay, so let's make our way down here. Oh, here we have a picture of a brain. Let's see. So, let's look at this caption. Brain scans show that the brains of teens playing non-violent games and those of teens playing violent games, on the right, have different patterns of activity. Those who play violent games showed a greater activity in the region of the brain. Let's see, associated with, oh, looks like our caption was cut off there. So let's go ahead and just highlight this. And we'll do it once again. You know what? It's kind of a cross, right? We have both here. So we'll just go with red so we can find it later. So they were put in a scanner. That's how they got those brain scans, apparently. And then they had to react to mind-bending tasks. So the results show that a part of the brain called the amygdala was especially active in players in the violent game. The amygdala prepares the body to fight or flee in high-stress situations. That's red. Moreover, players in the violent video game group, a part of the brain called the frontal lobe, was less active. Okay, so I think that's red. But then I'm going to put yellow for the frontal lobe helps us. Don't do that. The frontal lobe helps us stop ourselves from hitting, kicking, and performing other aggressive acts. So that's yellow. Okay, so frame of mind. Let's see. If they look at their behavior more closely, they may be more impulsive after they play these games. There's a lot of denial in people about what their behavior is like. I'm going to go red, right? Characteristics of violent video game players. And then this last heading, danger zone. Looks like kind of the conclusion, right? And let's go ahead and highlight the link between violent media and aggression is stronger than the link between doing homework and getting good grades. Ouch, this is not good news for violent video game players. Once again, this is a great quote that we can use for our supporting details when we get to that section. So it looks like we have quite a bit of supporting evidence, mostly red, right? Not a lot of yellow. Not a lot of characteristics of non-violent video game players. But the comparisons are sort of implicit here. So now that we have gone through and annotated, please go back to your article, and I want you to annotate using my examples. Find characteristics of violent video game players versus non-violent video game players. And the next step is to go to our foldable and fill those in so we can create our summary.